We are live at Next Edge Studios with the man, Jordon Larson. How you doing, buddy?
Doing good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Good to see you.
It's good to see you. It's good to be home.
Right? Absolutely. So, for my viewers that do not know, this is Jordon Larson, professional MMA fighter, most recently with Bellator Promotions. He's a U.S. Army veteran with the military police unit. He did a tour in Afghanistan. I believe that was Enduring Freedom.
Yep.
Okay. And I just wanted to have you on. There's a lot of topics that I think you're kind of an expert in that I want to talk to you about and get your take on and get your opinion on. So thanks for joining us today, buddy.
No, for sure. We line up on a lot of things, so it's good to be here and just advocate for the cause.
Absolutely, sir. So first of all, just getting into your fight career. When did you start fighting?
So I started after, I think it was my sophomore year of high school. It was one time Justin, my cousin, brought me in to train with Josh Rave, who actually used to be a part of Midwest Wrestling, which Jordon Larson, my uncle, started way back in the day, who he's had a lot of state champs from Sioux Falls and around the area, went through Midwest and then into the Sioux Falls high school teams and stuff like that. But at the time, Rave had recently come back from wrestling at Nebraska and was full well into his MMA career. And we didn't necessarily, at the time, we were just training, or he was just training in the back of, it's actually pretty close to here, but on Minnesota Avenue where they have J-Ho Sims used to be. We were in the back of there. There was like one line of like 4 bags and just a little mat space. And yeah, my cousin, like I said, Justin brought me in, and it was one night. That's all it took. I went in, I trained with him, with Rave. My buddy Josh Schmidt, Toothless, was in there. And we didn't do much. We grappled a little bit. I think I worked a jab for basically 45 minutes of the entire thing, and that was enough. I think maybe 1 week after that, I had made the decision at that point that, and football was really my first love of sports. I fell asleep with a football from probably 3rd grade to 8th grade, and like that was what I was going to do. In my head, I was going to go play ball in college. I was going to go to the NFL, and like, unfortunately, size-wise, that didn't line up. I loved it. I had the passion, and I think if I would, anything I wanted, I would eventually gotten. But I knew that in order to go to college, I needed to focus on wrestling. I needed to, and with this newfound love, with MMA, what I found, that was it. And I knew I needed more time for that. And if I wanted to pursue MMA and make that a thing, I needed to do what was going to get me there. And wrestling was going to be that. And what better than to work with a 2-time state champ that was willing to put his time into me and teach me not only all the things he knows about MMA, but also wrestling. And I can attribute my junior and senior success to that work I put in with Josh. But that was one of the hardest conversations I had, was not only going home, because my grandpa Ron, he loves football. And that junior year, I was probably going to work to, or sophomore year even, work to try and get into, or after that sophomore year into my junior year, work to try and get starting roles as linebacker and stuff like that. And that was tough to tell them, like, I'm not going to do this anymore. And like, they had watched me love this and do this and put my heart and soul into this sport. And now to tell them that, and not that I was quitting, but like I was moving on to something different. That was tough. But
if I can interrupt you, at the time, MMA wasn't what it is today.
No.
You're talking about backyard parking lot fights.
There was no commission in Sioux Falls or South Dakota at the time.
Yeah, so it's not like, oh, he's going to go to the UFC. I just want the listeners to understand the time period of when this is taking place, so that they can understand the context.
At this point, we were still having fights out at the they weren't even in the Expo building at the time. I think before that we were still doing it in the Armory building out at at the fairgrounds and stuff. It was, it was very, like you said, fledgling at the time. It wasn't what it is now, to where somebody'd be like, "Wow, like you have talent, you're gonna go after." Like, no, this was like, you're gonna do what?
Right.
And yeah, that conversation, like I said, I was leading up to Brian Hermanson, who is one of the most decorated high school or football in general coaches,
the Godfather
in
right?
South Dakota. Yeah. And like, to go sit in with him. So I walk in, I have all my gear in my bag. I mean, we were in the middle of summer camp, you know, and I walk in and like the first person, I'm nervous, like I'm sweating. Like Hermanson is not somebody that is light, like he's intimidating. Just
he's an intense
talking
gentleman.
to him. And as I walk in, I think maybe I'll be able to get in, turn my stuff into the equipment person, go find him, work up to this. No, I open the door, first person I see, Brian Hermanson. It's like, hey, coach, can I sit down with you? And honestly, I was just explaining to him everything, what I was going after, where I needed to focus my time, and like I knew that would disappoint him at the time, and like that. You know, but just explaining to him that I'm not doing this for some reason to go off and do things with my friends or whatever else. Like I'm transitioning motivation and time into something that I'm going to go after for a lifetime. And at the time, yeah, like you said, that's hard for people to absorb, meaning or because of the lack of popularity of the sport at the time.
Super taboo back then,
right?
I mean, you were looked at as a Neanderthal. Oh, you do this MMA, this fighting, this
right.
human cockfighting.
Yep.
I mean, it isn't.
It was nowhere near looked at as a professional sport by any means, and
legitimate.
He looks at me and just goes, "Kate, turn your stuff in." Got up and walked away from me, and I was just, like, you know, I was crushed for a moment, but like, I knew it. What else is he gonna say? He wants me on the field. He wants me out there. He knew what I had to offer. So like, just being able to, that was a step for me, just because. Letting go of football was a big deal. You know, just like eventually when I have to move on to the next step, we'll be moving on from this sport. But it was the right choice. And I suppose the reason, we have to go back a little bit more. I got to give tribute to our commissioner, Lee Loaf. My first love for MMA started.
Black belt at Next Edge.
Yep.
Under Bruce Hoyer.
He was fighting at I think actually, just like I said, the Armory out at the fairgrounds. And USA Today actually was doing a piece on this MMA event that we were having, and on him personally. And they had painted it up to be that it was going to be this positive or whatever else, like piece on MMA. Well, I don't think that it necessarily turned out to be that. And at the time, like we were in the crowd, and I didn't really necessarily know the backstory to this, but as he gets out there and like we see him come out, and I had kind of known of Lee Loaf just from his work with the National Guard and stuff like that, with the combatives unit and stuff. But he comes out, and this guy that he was fighting was definitely cocking off to him, was trying to be, you know what I mean, just doing the counter thing before, you know what I mean, but he didn't have the place to be doing that.
Right.
And Lee Loaf takes him down, takes his back, and gives this guy a back massage before he proceeds to just rain down heavy blows. And like, I was sitting in the crowd with my Uncle Jody, and here it is. Yep, there it was. And my cousins, and oh my gosh, it was glorious. I'm up, I think, in the opposite corner right there in those stands. I
was screaming at him, by the way. I was so irritated.
Oh, no.
But like,
were you cornering him for that, Bruce?
Yes, I was.
Oh, nice.
So
he actually gave me those shorts, and I have those, and those will be, once I have my house, those will be framed and put up. And because that moment right there was like, wow, like I'm gonna do this someday. So yeah, that was kind of where my love began, and then my first start was when I went into train with Josh.
So then you go from training with Josh, and then just talk a little bit about, because you know, we're in the Next Edge studios. We're at Next Edge Gym. You know, Bruce does a lot for the podcast. Talk about the relationship then evolved into training out of Next Edge and getting with Bruce. And I think that really kind of skyrocketed you earlier on in your career. Would you agree?
Yeah, no, for sure. I think, and like the transition of that, like at the time, and Bruce was doing his own thing. They had their own gym and stuff. I don't remember where they were at the time. But once he had his own place, Josh had actually moved down to Nebraska at the time. So I had a brief moment where I was training with Next Edge before I had went and wrestled at Northern State. And I mean, that transition actually was, It was nice because it was, I mean, we didn't have other people at the gym. It was me, Josh, the other, so, and like that was it. And Josh's fights at 135. He was a little guy. And yeah, I had Toothless there, but just to have more bodies. And not only that, when I got over there, Bruce's wealth of knowledge in jiu-jitsu and just the overall game. Like, just because he has his focus in jiu-jitsu, the man has seen this sport since the beginning. Mm-hmm. So he knows how to mold these things. I say this all the time, but Bruce has a he is or not personalized, but like his focus is in jiu-jitsu, but out of a lot of coaches that I've been around, he does an excellent job of being able to tie in other aspects of the sport for MMA, where he can still, listen, we can get to these positions that I'm teaching you from here, from our feet to then to the cage, to this takedown, to everything else. And he also knows how to work with the athlete as far as what they bring to the table. He can witness, okay, this is how this person's going to be able to get to use the techniques that I'm teaching them, and he can tie all that in.
Right.
And so that was another aspect to my game. Once transitioning over to Next Edge, I think my stride with training with Bruce, though, came after I had went to Northern, wrestled up there, and decided, okay, I'm not going to go back there for multiple reasons at that point. But and we can go over that too. But I had come home, and it was just, this is what I'm doing now. I'm going for this, and Bruce was right there to snag me up and show me the ropes of really how this is done, how you be a professional, how you take care of yourself in this game.
Really a mentor for you at that time.
For sure. And in multiple ways. Some of my funnest memories of like training with Bruce was not necessarily even us at the gym, which we had so many good sessions, but when we would travel and go to other gyms and see other coaches and get other competition, and like it was really cool to go into some of these other gyms and with Bruce, and we are up to par, with guys of, highly touted gyms, highly touted individuals, and and it's also a great gauge to see where you're at when you train at a smaller gym and there's not as many numbers as far as like the people competitively in the sport. But when we're out there and we're being able to show up to these gyms and hold our own, like what it showed me is not only is this training what I need, like I'm in line with what I'm doing, but it speaks volumes to Bruce's training.
Right. So then you go from Next Edge all the way down to Arizona. Are you in Chandler now?
Actually, so right now our gym is technically in Mesa. At the time when I moved down to Arizona, though, it was in Gilbert. Right now we're in kind of a transitionary place. We're in this like just old like car garage type thing where it's just basically our mats and like the pro
just
stuff.
A pro gym.
Yeah. And
it's not a workout. It's not a gym facility that you're paying a membership. It's for pros, MMA pros.
Right. And cool though, because we're starting to get a lot of those people back that were at our gym prior to, and within the next few months here, we're going to break ground on our new facility. But so right now, our temporary gym's in Mesa, and I live in Mesa as well, but I believe we're going to be moving back to Gilbert.
Okay. And so since coming to Power, I guess, working with your new coach and doing those things and working with obviously Ryan Bader, CB Dalloway, a lot of high quality UFC vets. Describe a little bit about kind of that step up in competition, working with people that have, 15, 20 UFC fights. What has that been like for you?
A kind of a cool moment that I just had at this camp. So we started off, or we like to start bigger camps or important camps so there's a mountain called A Mountain. It's kind of a big hill, but out by ASU, and we'll go out there and like a lot of the ASU wrestlers or sports or whatever will go do sprints up there and stuff, and that's kind of where we took it from. But so we'll start our camps out there, and I had a moment as we're doing hill sprints and stuff up there that I just was kind of like, yo, Jason, like, and Jason's our strength and conditioning coach. I was like, this is it's almost like I was taken back just because at one point in my senior year of high school, or like even right before then, I think Bader had released the first video of like Power MMA, and when they opened up and like was doing a video tour or whatever of it, and like I remember watching that and being here in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, with where I was at in my career and everything else, and being like just amazed, like that facility looks crazy, like those guys, there's so many dudes there, like just to be able to even train there would be crazy, you know, that would be phenomenal. And then like just that moment on the hill where I had said that to him and I had kind of expressed those feelings, and Jason was just like, yeah, like you manifested that.
Right.
You know, like
through hard work.
Right, exactly. But it's a want. Like, how much did I want to be there? How much did I want those things? Shows because I got exactly what I wanted. But like, as you're in the thick of it and you're grinding towards it, you don't necessarily realize what's happening at the moment or where, you know what I mean, where this is going, because you have your eyes set on certain goals or certain aspirations and things of that nature. And like, it takes hard work, it takes focus, and like, just in that moment, I was able to step back and be like, you know, to that same guy that was sitting there, just in allure and like amazement of like what it would be like to train in a gym like that or with those guys and that atmosphere. And like, I was very much in the thick of it at that point, about to have my you know, my larger card debut with Bellator, and like it was just a moment of reflection and to look back, and when I got there, that's exactly what it was. And I say this all the time with some of the guys there. I look around when I show up to the gym, and like I see Bader, I see CB, I see a lot of other guys that have come through there that have been through the UFC or bigger shows and have done things where, I mean, they have their fan bases set and stuff, and I'm still very much a fanboy, you know? So, like, I mean, even when I first got down there, yeah, I could separate that, but there would be times when I'm like, this is insane, you know? Like, this is... And just to be able to, like, notice that or appreciate that, you have to almost just kind of be in the moment and recognize that. But I think that's important, because what the hell else am I doing this for? Like, this is... And to be able to have that, like, and I think another important thing that I get from having those guys around, and Bader specifically, and this is something I said when I went to Northern, when I wrestled at Northern State, this was something I was missing, was somebody older, somebody to set an example. And not that there wasn't other wrestlers working hard and going after their own things, but I was, as a freshman in college, vulnerable individual. I didn't know exactly who I was at the time. I knew what I wanted. I knew
you're a wild son of a bitch.
Yeah,
is who you were.
I was. Yeah, and like I said, I was motivated and ready to show up there, but in a vulnerable spot too, because I was also willing to do anything to gain the approval of my teammates and the people above me. And at the time, at the
detriment of even your wrestling.
Right, exactly. Detriment of that, just to be able to get that connection with those guys. Partied too damn hard. We like to say that our wrestling team, or our drinking team, had a wrestling problem up at Northern, but I didn't have that. And I didn't have that, like, somebody that said, hey, like, you can't do this because of this. Like, you need to follow this. You need to follow this. And maybe even if I did have that, it might not have been the right time for me to follow that or to have that in front of me. I might not have witnessed the value of listening to somebody above me or to see how it was done. When I see Bader, not only, so just prime example of like the type of example he sets. So I talked about the transition of where we're at right now. Power closed down. That original location is no longer. And due to multiple reasons, but either way, I mean, we had a strong family unit, and it was a large gym, but at the same time, it felt like a very close-knit family atmosphere. Like, you knew all the parents of the kids that were in the jiu-jitsu and wrestling programs. I ran the wrestling program with Coach Mike down there. So you just, like, it was your place to go. Like, it was, you know.
Like a family.
Yeah, exactly. And, like, when that separated, Bader never stopped. He wrapped all of that up, took all of that. Mind you, in camp, for his Bellator fight, his Bellator debut, which was a title fight against Phil Davis, this all is happening. So now, not only we don't have our transitionary place that we're in now, we had to go over to, thank God, Thoroughbred Wrestling in Arizona was able to, and Eric Larkin opened up his doors and had us come in, and we were able to train there, but just took it in stride. And not only that, was able to continue running Juby, continue to do his own social media things, continue to train for this fight, and then goes and wins a belt. And all the while, keeping a smile on his face, taking care of his kids, his wife, his family. I mean, for me, the fact that he shouldered all of that, it makes the rest of your problems or whatever else you have going on outside the fight game seem very small.
Right.
And that's motivating to me. When I see somebody at the top, the champ, doing that, and you want to know how it's done, and you have a first-hand witness to that every single day. And for me, like, that's huge. That I'm very thankful to have.
Priceless.
That. What's that?
Priceless.
Yeah, no, you can't. It's an example like that is for sure. It's priceless. It helps me continue to, when you have those moments of, and not that you don't need to validate or validate your own stuff, but at the same time, it just gives you perspective. Like, hey, these things can be done with hard work and perseverance.
Right. No, for sure. No, that's all good stuff, man. You touched on it a little bit, but I want to kind of go back to it. So you were on the fight card last Friday night in Sioux Falls. Bellator MMA came to Sioux Falls. For people watching that maybe don't know, you have the UFC and Bellator competing for that number one spot. You know, obviously I think the UFC is at that number one spot. Bellator continues to grow, though, and they continue to make moves in free agency, get high-level fighters. You see Ryan Bader go over there. Now he's the champ. And they've got that Grand Prix-style tournament that you don't have in the UFC that I, as a fight fan, I love that.
Throws it back to Pride days.
Absolutely. But anyway, so you were on that card, and we'll get into kind of how your match went. Obviously it didn't go your way, and I want to talk to you about some of that. But just stopping for a second and realizing, because I was with you in high school, and I was with all those people that said, what the hell are you doing? This is the dumbest thing you've ever decided to do. We went to school after a day of training. You had 2 black eyes, and teachers are just like, you're throwing your life away. This is a worthless dream. Don't do this. Eating some crow a little bit, aren't they? How did that feel to step in the ring, regardless of the outcome, to know that obviously you're not where you want to be yet, but just to even be in that ring and on that card, in your hometown, in front of some of those people that maybe said that you would never get there, that's got to be a surreal feeling.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough because, I want that W. I want that. I wanted that all-encompassing everything, but it is important to take a look at that and to I have these last few days. It's been, and not necessarily in an eating crow way, because if I was to, and at one point my motivation was to show you guys. I'll show you. At one point I was on a plane with Coach Tim from Northern State. And granted, I deserved a little bit of this because of my time in Vegas, and I was in a little bit of trouble. But unfortunately, my plane ticket was sat right next to Coach Tim on the way home. And he basically asked me what I wanted to do, and I reluctantly told him, even though I knew what was coming next. And he said, that will never happen for you. You want to know why? Because you don't work hard enough. Well, I mean, I still hear that. I still know what it felt like to hear that, and I know... there's definitely some of that in my motivation. But if that was solely my motivation, I would tie it to wins and losses, and I would hold it to that. But I can't. I have to do it, and I have to fall in love with the journey, because this is what I want to do. This is what I chose to do. Now, if I tie it to did giving them that. You know what I mean? Then they also get the ability to say, well, you didn't get where you said, whatever else. It doesn't matter what they think, what they have that opinion of. Is for me, it's continuing to continuing to appreciate the process, in the sense that it's a fucking grind.
Right.
I mean, there's days that I wake up and my body aches and I have to stretch just to move out of my bedroom. But I don't have to go to a 9 to 5. I don't have to clock in. I don't have to hear a boss. And these things remind me of why I'm doing this. In this moment, for this Bellator card, I did really, truly absorb it because I needed to. I needed to have that for myself. I needed to, and it was nice to be able to share that, like you're saying, in opposition of those in doubt with my loved ones. Because like the people that show up in those shirts, the people that scream my name and are there and have been there since I was fighting in the expo building or out at the that one we had out at Huset's, like those people are why I do this. Those people are what, like, when I win or when I lose, like that pain or that happiness, like I could start crying right now. Like it's love, and it's like it's beyond like anything I can explain, and like that's why I do this. So their happiness and their eyes lighting up, seeing me do what I love, and knowing that like not many people work harder than me. I show up and I grind. I outside of the gym, I'm doing my food right. I'm doing everything as a step towards this, but it's all.
Not only do people not many people work harder than you. You got to realize how many people say, I want to do this when I grow up, and I want to do this when I grow up. They don't even pursue it.
Right.
You know, I mean, what is it? I'd be lying if I made up a stat, but think of the people that you know in your life that say, I want to be this when I grow up, and they don't even go and pursue it. So when people tell me, you know, I have people come and be like, oh, like, well, what's next for Jordan, you know, after a loss or something like that? You know, is he done? I'm like, I don't know. But some of you guys didn't even try. You know, I had dreams and stuff that I didn't go pursue. I mean, a lot of people that you know have dreams and stuff that they don't go pursue, and you're there every day checking in and punching the clock to do that dream and to make that dream a reality. And there's not many of the people out there like that. So props to you, brother. And I was really proud of you for getting this opportunity. But one of the other things I want to get into, so it didn't go your way. And we don't need to get into the details of that. I know you haven't even seen the fight to be able to even.
I actually just watched it.
Did you?
Mm-hmm. It made me. I was definitely, after I watched it, I felt better about it than afterwards. It's just like it's so much different from what you think is happening in your mind or what, like in that moment than afterwards. Yeah, definitely not happy with the outcome, but like you look at it, you go back, and I've seen. Yeah, I'm already in a better place for watching it.
Right, and where I was going with that is, what's your approach now with the next fight, or what's your mentality coming off a loss like that? Big loss in front of your home crowd, not the outcome that you wanted. How do you move on to the next thing, and what is your approach to
that? To be quite honest, it's changed over time. And honestly, over the last year, as far as my mentality towards the sport, towards what I'm doing, and honestly just bettering myself all around. It's tough. Like it sucks. It hurts. It's a blow to everything that I wanted and everything I had going as far as like what I had imagined for the next step. But that doesn't change the fact of that this is the process. This is where I'm at. Now, yeah, I though I'm upset, though I'm whatever else, like if I really think about it, like so you're upset. What's the next thing? You have pity. You feel bad for yourself. You want somebody else to feel bad for you. Okay, you get all these things. Now what? Right. Now what do you do? Well, now you're still sitting there. Okay, so you have a choice. You let that sit. You let that sink in, and you continue to let that fester, or you let that go. And you literally, like, there's just, like, I work on a logistical standpoint. How long, how much time, I mean, where does that get you? Where does that get me? With anything, really, and in a larger spectrum, pity or when things go wrong and like you have something happen to you, it's good to validate those feelings and make you know what I mean, like feel that grief. But it's also just as important to let that go and shake that off, because we have no other option. You don't life goes on. I promise you. This was something that I learned while I was in Afghanistan, is that yes, your loved ones are there for you and everything else, and but nothing, life doesn't stop. It just keeps going. So you either stay in that moment or you turn it around. It's that simple. And I can, like I said, what else am I doing? Because this is what I want to do. I don't want to go do anything else. And my body is still able. Why would I stop myself from continuing to pursue this?
Right.
I don't care anymore. Granted, I have goals and I have aspirations of where I want this to go and where I want to be. I'm still chasing a belt. I'm still chasing being the best every single day. That's how it works. How the journey goes is not up to me.
Right.
I do everything I can to try and manipulate the future, but you don't know.
Right.
And as long as I continue to enjoy the journey, I'm going to continue to do what I'm doing, because for me, that's it. It's the overall body of work. When I can look back and, like you said, I continued to hammer it out and I didn't quit. It doesn't matter what I have. I'm happy with what I've done. So if I wake up and I'm doing what I love to do, I can tell you that there's a lot of people that are sitting out there judging me for we had that loss. Does he really keep doing
Meanwhile,
this?
they're at a job that
Exactly.
they hate. They punch in the clock.
Yep.
They talk to a boss that they can't stand.
They don't like their
they go
wife.
home to
They
a
don't
life that
like-
they didn't
yep.
they didn't want.
They didn't want it, and they're quick to judge if it. Well, he got this or did this, and they're quick to make those excuses. And for me, I don't want that.
Right.
So as long as I'm happy
Right.
and doing what I love, I'm gonna keep doing it.
Success for you in the fight game isn't wins and losses. It's
Nope.
the fact that you continue to do what you enjoy every day.
Yep. And it wasn't always that way. I can be honest. There was times that I felt that. I mean, not too long ago, there was losses that I was like, fuck me, where do I go from here? Am I not this? Am I not that? And you are what you are, the things that are changing those are bringing doubt within your life. You know what it is, inside you. We all do. It's how much you allow the excess things, the exterior energies to mess with you. And you have to know that, you're not always going to be happy. You're not always going to be in a good spot. But know that will change very soon. And you'll be able to get into that groove again. And, like I said, falling in love with this journey, this is what I chose. I want to be a fighter. So no matter how my story ends or whatever it is, this is what I did. Right. I can look back, and 8-year-old me, if I go meet him right now and tell him what I'm doing, he's sitting there watching a Van Damme movie or a Steven Seagal movie from his grandpa's movie stash, which I may have found some other movies in there that were awesome at the time, But no, He's super happy. I have a beautiful girlfriend. I have a loving family. I do what I love every single day, and and I'm fighting people. Like I said, that 8-year-old is happy, and for me, as that 8-year-old, I feel like that's the goal. Is at some point to be I like that guy in the future. He's dope, and I know he'd be happy. So for me, that keeps me motivated.
No, I think that's a good exclamation point on all that stuff, man. And I know obviously where you're coming from. I've been on the journey with you, and it's good to see the evolution and where you're at today, just even mentally,
Yeah.
Can I interject?
Go ahead, buddy.
Okay, so oftentimes people don't realize that when you're going through all these struggles, all these tribulations, things like that, that's actually what defines the next 50, 60 years of your life. You being able to deal with this stuff now and learning all this stuff now is what's going to make you, whatever you choose to go on to, be it, fighting still or going on to be an entrepreneur in something else, which sounds like that's probably the way that you want to go rather than working for somebody else, which I hate to tell you this, but when you're an entrepreneur, all of a sudden the customers are your boss. It's weird.
Yep.
But that being said, that actually is, you're going through your college right now for the culmination of what you're going to be doing for the next 40 years of your life. And these values that you instill now are the things that's actually going to provide you later on. It's weird that people start to think that a lot of these things don't count for anything. You pursuing your career, or you're pursuing your dream doesn't actually benefit you at all later on in life, and I think that's a huge thing. You can go off and get yourself an education at any point in your life, which it's never fun to do. Be a student at 35 years old, but you could go off and do that and get a 9-to-5 job again.
Yep.
You can't often go back and get this, but the skills that you're learning now will benefit you throughout the rest of your life, and the ability of getting up every morning and pursuing something that not many people would ask for.
That's a great point. I think, and on top of that, like, how many times have you already noticed that when you get into the real world situations and you're like, somebody else outside that doesn't train or doesn't, you know what I mean? Like there's some sort of problem that arises, and just the way that you deal with it is so much different than the other people may deal with that moment. And I think is exactly what you're saying. Like, these moments build a certain callus to the rest of things that you're, and not only that, other people see that sacrifice that you did for that long. You know what I mean? Or what you went after. And that's a valued commodity. I mean, that's really what people are looking for with people out of college. Can you stick something out for this long, no matter what it is, you know?
The problem is in our society,
right?
The people that are going to college, and a lot of them come out and do really well, but a lot of the times, a lot of these people come to college and they come out looking for a job. They have zero experience. They have no work ethic.
Right.
I mean, it's almost having the opposite effect. But I want to transition really quick, and thank you, Bruce. Wise words from Yoda over there.
Very much so.
I want to transition to this because probably something I'm super passionate about, and maybe even more important than your fighting career, what you've done in the military. You come from a military background and a military family. Just give the viewers a little bit of information, because your entire family was in the military. I mean, when people on the coast talk about, oh, we support our troops, I mean, they don't realize the majority of the people in the heartland are the ones that are going overseas, and that's your family. I mean, list the people in your family that are in the military.
Yeah, we had my great-grandpa Leo was in the military. My grandfather Ron was in the military. My uncle Jordon Larson was in the military. He was in the field artillery unit. We had...
Over 20 years, right?
Yep. We had... Justin, my older cousin.
2 tours, I believe.
Or 1 tour in Afghanistan. And then my cousin Nate, his younger brother, was deployed with me in Afghanistan. I have an uncle, Ben Lamp, my grandma's brother, is in the military as well. So there's a long list, and I'm sure there's more that I'm missing. But I think that it's definitely a proud thing that all of our family holds up tall. Well,
and you should be proud of it. And the reason I kind of give that background to the viewers is because we're going to get in some topics that in a little bit that I think I just want to explain. You are an expert on some of this stuff, and you have firsthand experience. So we talked a little bit about it. You were in Afghanistan, Operation Enduring Freedom. What was that 2010, 2011 time frame?
Nope, it was a little bit after that. I think it was 12 or now 13? Like 5 or 6 years ago. 5 years ago, okay. I believe.
So probably 13-ish. Yep. Military police officer. Describe a day in Afghanistan for people that have these freedoms that take them for granted. Walk through the day of a soldier in Afghanistan.
For me, as we were over there, Nate and I both worked as bailiffs. So basically, on our base, we had the largest prison system in Afghanistan. Our job was to collect all of the detainees
which are terrorists, right? Detainees,
right? Yeah. People that we have apprehended for numerous reasons, whatever it may be. I didn't get necessarily to know every single person, but we got to see firsthand the baddest of the baddest dudes. I mean, I remember that first day showing up, walking through the prison. I can still smell that smell. Like, it's like in my body. But this was happening since we were, this conflict, 9/11 happened when we were in middle school.
Right.
We were 7th graders, I think. or 6th graders, one of the two.
And even before that, too, when you talk about, the World Trade Center bombing
Yep.
in the 90s. And
Yep.
yeah, I mean, it's been going on
Yep,
forever.
for sure. I remember sitting in social studies class at one point, and we were going over it or whatever and talking about the move and whatever else we were going to do, going to war, and just thinking like I could eventually be in this. Like, this could be a thing. And like, it was a profound thought for me at the moment, but like eventually I was there. And that moment hit me really deep when I first saw, like I said, our first tour when we were with the transition unit, and they were showing us what our job was going to be and what we had to do, and seeing these bearded cocksuckers, with their blinders on,
It's a
right
family
away,
show, Jordan.
and just like having that feeling of like, forever it was you saw what was on the news at the time. It was insurgents and everything else. You just don't know. You've been seeing this for so long. It was almost, I compare it to seeing somebody famous or infamous, and I was kind of taken aback. And then you get into the grind, and then you get into this, like, it's your job now. But basically our job is to show up. We round up all the detainees that we're taking to the Afghan court system. We go there. We make sure that we transition them to whatever court they have to go to that day. And then at the end of the day, obviously we're guarding the entire thing. At the end of the day, we transition them back to their cells and wherever else they need to go. One of the things that I noticed there is that and like I said, it's a different place. Like, you see people that hate you for who you are. Just who you are.
Just for being a white
Just
American
for being
Christian.
an American.
Yeah.
And you see what real evil looks like, and you just know that it exists. And regardless of, I'm not of the, you know what I mean? I just know that there's other reasons that I necessarily don't agree with, that we may be there, whatever else. But while you're there, that doesn't matter. It's
Right.
you and the guys that you're there with, and we have a mission to do. But it's a different place. What I noticed is the lack or the difference in value for actual life
Right.
is different than what we have here.
Right.
And I think that
Do you think we take it for granted
I
here?
think right there is something that the public doesn't understand. When we talk about other countries, or where people are bringing people here from other countries, I think, and just I can sympathize with it, but there's an idea that everybody is just raised with these values that we are here.
It's not real.
And it's not the case. Meaning, when you go to a court system in the United States, it looks pristine. Or when you go to a courthouse, it looks pristine. It looks professional. When you see judges walk around, most likely, you're going to know whether you're in there or not. You know who they are. You know they're important. Same thing with the attorneys and everything else. You know, all right? It's clean. It's professional. When you go there, it's not. There's rats running around, which I was not happy about, as I have a healthy phobia. The professionalism, just everything is different because of their lack of value for things.
Right.
And
even the lack of value of human life.
Right.
It's not like cleanliness is a much different
It
lack of
speaks to
value than
right.
human life.
But it speaks to a larger, you know what I mean? A larger value of everything.
Right.
Kind of like that statement, if you can't do the dishes right, how are you going to run a Fortune 500 company right?
Right.
Okay, well, if that's prevalent everywhere, and I'm not saying that that's what makes the difference, it's multiple things encompassing. That these people necessarily from this area, and I'm not saying all of them, because I did meet some very motivated, compassionate individuals over there, but it was few and far between for me.
Sure. So I kind of want to get into some things happening here at home, but I think your background kind of gives you a little bit of a expertise to talk about. So how do you react when on the news, it seems like more and more all the time, you see people burning the flag or disrespecting the country, or whether it be the anthem protests or burning our flag, or saying, America was never great. The governor of New York said the other day. Watching those people go to tour with you, all the sacrifices you've seen, the coffins coming back draped in the American flag. How do you respond to some of that stuff?
You know, I mean, obviously it's disappointing, and it's unfortunate on their behalf, on the behalf of that sacrifice. But at the same time, that's exactly what we fight for.
Right.
Is the ability to do that. Now, as far as the, I mean, flag burning is absolutely, I'd love for them to spend a couple days over there.
That's my point.
I would love for them to just go see somewhere that is not what you have here, and to be able to experience that. Now, as far as the flag, or just to narrow in here, the national anthem protests. I don't necessarily hold as hard of a line here maybe as you do, only because of the fact that I definitely do sympathize with what the cause was supposed to be about, what it initially was intended for. I don't think that it was done the right way. I would not have done that. Okay, if I wanted to do that, if I wanted to speak about that, I would not have done it that way, just because it is an utter disrespect to the flag.
Right.
And my problem is that if you've done that, we've raised awareness. We're all watching. We're all paying attention. Let's transition this martyrism, or this highlight, this stage that we've presented now. Let's do something.
Right.
Why now? Where are all those people that are willing to kneel for the flag or in the national anthem? Why do we not see them on their day off marching in Washington? Do you know how many people, if you asked, and I've heard Stephen A. say the same thing, if you went out there and had all of your followers and all of your, you know what I mean, the people that you have, so many followers, so many dedicated fans, you go actually do it right. We're marching on Washington. We're taking it to the next step. We're getting into the communities. We're using the attention we got to make a difference. That's where my problem is that at some point I feel like we're doing it for attention, some of them, and that we've lost the goal of what that was to be. As far as the disrespect to the flag, like I said, I understand the fact that that's what we do it for, and that's what their right is. And I wouldn't have it any other way, because of the fact that that's exactly why people sacrifice their lives for that freedom. And do I agree with it? For them to be open and doing it in the wrong way? No. But I almost applaud the fact that they don't get, I do applaud the fact that we're not shooting those people. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like that's the freedoms we have in America.
And I would never suggest that happened.
No. Obviously, I'm just saying. But in some places in the world,
and get killed for just saying what you think.
Speak out about anything.
I mean, in London, if you disagree with what the judge says, you go to jail.
Right.
If you disagree with a certain case or a certain type of thing, and you speak about it or report on it, you're going to jail. So,
I don't have a problem with them taking action. I have a problem, like I said, with staying in that place. We're just trying to cause a scene.
Right.
I want action. I want
what I want is education.
Right.
I want education. I want these people that are so passionate about this stuff to actually learn the numbers and the facts.
Yep.
Because when you go on a microphone and you take a public stand and you talk about all these atrocities, and I believe how it started was police brutality, and you're not following up that police brutality with the fact that it's less than 1%, it's so minuscule of a percentage when it occurs. And when it occurs, lock those people up, lock that police officer up, throw away the key. Absolutely ridiculous abuse of power. Should never happen. But when you stand on a platform and try to say that this is by and large happening all over, and every time somebody is stopped. And now we see as a result, people have been murdering police officers because of the lack of education about this. It's irresponsible. That's where I get a little upset when I see public servants in positions getting murdered because somebody didn't bother to educate themselves on the statistics and then incited riots basically across the country. And then the leaders in these communities didn't bother to educate the people in these communities about the statistics either.
Well, and that's
what's frustrating
why I question
for
the
me.
entire motive of the whole thing.
Right.
Where, okay, Colin Kaepernick, you did your job. You did what you set out to do. Now you're on Twitter and your girlfriend is calling Ray Lewis, who's trying to get you a job, an Uncle Tom.
Yeah.
And we want to talk about like the racist problem. Like you can't have it both ways.
Right.
That's not okay. And that's why I'm questioning, like, did you do this for attention or did you do this for the motive behind it, for the movement?
No.
Because I do agree that there is an issue, and I do agree that there's a right and wrong way to go about that. I think education is the right way. And I also think that education within the police system. I also hold them accountable. I hold good police officers accountable. I understand that it's a larger team, and we have to be here for one another to be able to stand up so that we have each other's backs. But that person that's not doing the right thing, the cop that's not doing the right thing, does not help you.
Makes everybody else look
It does
bad.
not make your job easier.
And
you need to police that up. You have to hold them accountable.
I don't disagree.
Just like in any other team, you have somebody dropping the ball, you're going to light them up.
Right.
Because we have an overall goal. And if you're not here for that,
why are you
know
here?
what I mean? Like,
why are you here if you're not
in
here for that?
jeopardy of that guy making a mistake. Now, do you want your job to be in jeopardy because of somebody else's wrongdoings?
Right.
No.
Right.
I'm going to hold you to this same standard. And that's the other thing I have a problem with. When I was in Afghanistan, and this is kind of on the opposite end, only in regards to holding them accountable, I could have been sent to Leavenworth for almost the rest of my life for misconduct of a detainee. That is a terrorist. Somebody is an absolute enemy of the United States. I have to hold with utmost respect. Now, you're telling me you're not held to that same standard with U.S. citizens?
Right.
I don't care that it's a tough job. I hate that excuse. Well, you got to know that, like, they're in a high-stress area, and, like, if that's a problem for you, go find a different job.
Right.
You took this responsibility. If you can't handle it, find a different job. There is no excuse. When it is your job, don't come to me with, well, it was just... It was tough, and this was happening. It doesn't matter. I don't care.
And that's why I'm so passionate about this issue, because I think it is so overlooked. The 99 point whatever percent of the people
doing
that
the right things,
phenomenal, selfless people that would give their life for another human being. I mean, the fact that we would overlook that.
Doing work in the communities outside of being a police officer, doing multiple things with other cultures and being able to bridge that gap and get so much work is being done. That speaks to a larger, that's the problem with the whole thing in general, is we're highlighting this like
minuscule fraction
and not highlighting positive things.
Right.
It's so quick
I would love to
latch
see Colin Kaepernick go to the San Francisco PD and go hand in hand with those police officers into the community and do something.
Yep. Action.
That's what you need. You need to unite people.
If he would have done that, if he would have then, okay, now everybody's watching, now watch what I do.
Right. Unite the
That's
people.
so much more. And then I guarantee you we're not talking about what you did anymore.
Right.
Because you took action.
Right.
And granted, and like I said,
he gave like $2 million, but dude, money is money.
Money is money. Do we even know where that goes?
No.
Do we know how that was used?
Yeah.
You know, like it's time is really valuable.
Right. Educate people from here and do it in your community. That's what we're looking for. So, no, I agree with a lot of what you said there, and it's just. I think,
like I said, I don't, and that's the other problem is that we're at the mercy of who wants to highlight what and how they highlight it,
Right.
you know? And I just think it's very, very important. It's okay to watch different news outlets. It's okay to watch Sports Center, listen to different opinions. You need to, but the next thing you do is think for yourself. You need to do your own homework. You need to look, okay, they spouted off this stat. I'm going to check that. I'm going to see if that's right. Just to, you know, I'm going to do my homework just so that I can formulate my own thoughts.
Right.
It's so dangerous because I think so many times people don't, I mean,
They
you
read
wanna
a
be part of
headline or a
group
Facebook
on both
post
sides,
or-
on both sides. It's embarrassing.
Right.
It's embarrassing because you don't actually feel, because if somebody comes up to you and is like, okay, how do you feel on this? And you just regurgitate some Facebook video
Talking
you saw
points.
or something, like formulate your own thought. And if you know what I mean, and change it if it changes. That's
Right.
another thing that upsets me.
Right.
About
You
things.
said this 10 years ago. Yeah, but this happened in 10 years.
Yeah, I
man.
changed it. I wish I could see that from more politicians.
Right.
Admitting that they were wrong.
Right.
I don't understand.
Or saying that they
Right.
changed their mind
Right.
based on these
Not that they
events.
were wrong. At the time, like now these have happened. I think differently on this
Right.
moment.
Right.
I think that gauges more honesty and integrity out of them than, I didn't say that. That didn't happen. Like,
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we got some other topics here, and I want to make sure that we get time to get onto them. So, some of the issues facing our vets, I want to get into, and specifically, I want to talk about opioids in America and in the military. And the reason I want to get into this is because it is a huge problem, and I've got some stats here. So, just in America, 64,000 Americans have died in the last 12 months due to the opioid epidemic. And so for you guys that don't know what opioids are, it's basically fentanyl, prescription drugs, Oxycontin, oxycodone, those types of things, highly addictive narcotics that get prescribed to individuals in this country. So in 2017, President Trump declared the opioid epidemic a public health emergency. And the reason that background is so important and those statistics are really staggering, you have to understand how that impacts veterans, because it impacts veterans. Veterans are twice as likely as non-veterans to die from accidental overdoses of the highly addictive painkillers. And this is according to Reuters here. And Bruce is going to throw up the links so you guys can do your own research. I've provided the sources for you. I think it's important that when I give stats on here that you guys know where they come from so you can look into them yourself. But highly addictive painkillers at a rate that reflects high levels of chronic pain among veterans, particularly those who served in the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, according to federal data. The U.S. government and healthcare officials have been struggling to stem the epidemic overdoses, which killed more than 64,000 Americans in the last 12 months. 21% increase over the previous year, according to the Center for Disease Control. So I wanted to touch on that because I have a story about that. And, you know, you read stats and you're like, okay, well, that's those people. That doesn't affect me. My brother served in the Marine Corps for 8 years. I went out to visit him in San Diego. He was living out there. He was stationed at Camp Pendleton. And I had broken my ankle like 2 days before I was supposed to go out there. And so I barely had time to go to the doc and get a cast. And then I flew out there. And coincidentally enough, he had broken his ankle about 6 months before that and actually had to have surgeries and things like that. And where I'm going with this is when I got out there, I was like, dude, my ankle's killing me. Do you have any ibuprofen or anything? And he's like, yeah, there should be some in the medicine cabinet. I go into his 1-bedroom apartment, and in the medicine cabinet, I'm not even making this up, probably 15 to 16 full bottles of Oxycontin. And I was like, Chris, what in the hell is this? And they were full. He hadn't even taken them. He said they send them to me every month. Mm-hmm. They just send me full bottles of them. Mm-hmm. I didn't even ask for them. They're just shoving these down our veterans' throats. I mean,
it's so easy. It's literally like, I mean, every month I had, I still have them sent, but like I don't have to take them as much anymore, thank God. But I mean, it wasn't like the opioids, but like 500 milligram naproxen is still hard on your liver if you're doing that every single day.
Right.
And
they don't even tell you how to take them or what, they just have a label on it with what you should do.
You think normally you get like the certain amount of what you're supposed to, like,
not
you're
the case.
Getting full prescriptions.
Right.
Of
a whole bottle, whole prescription bottle, 30, 40 pills
of opioids
per month.
Yeah. Per month. It just re-goes, and more than you even need.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's an absolute, and the problem is that the problem isn't even at just the VA. Okay, it's the pharmaceutical companies continuing to push these.
Right.
I mean, and that's really where this is. When you just have to trace the money for a lot of things, and I mean that speaks to why marijuana is still illegal. You know, I mean it's right there. There's troubles already in Arizona with things that like with them trying to change little verbiage in the law with legalized medical marijuana in
because it's legal where you're from.
Exactly.
And so for people that don't know, Jordan lives in Arizona, and you do have a medical marijuana card. Is that correct? Okay.
Yep.
So and I want to get into some of this stuff too, because let me get into this next topic, and then I want to talk to you about medical marijuana, because obviously that relates to a lot of this. So, in addition to the opioid issues, there's a lot of psychological issues, and they're prescribing a lot of prescriptions.
That's also, I didn't want to miss that point. Though there is an opioid problem, okay, the real issue is mental health.
Correct.
And the same thing
I got some stats here.
With the gun problem. Okay, there isn't a problem. We have a mental health problem.
For sure. So these stats, and I encourage everyone out there, when you're looking at stuff, don't just Google and pick the first thing.
No.
This is coming from
pay for those
ptsd.va.gov, and this is from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. I don't know how you're going to get a better source than that. So PTSD, up to 30% of Vietnam veterans have PTSD. Up to 20% of Operation Iraqi Freedom and Enduring Freedom vets have PTSD. Up to 12% of Gulf War vets have PTSD. 22 veterans per day take their own life due to mental health issues. As a veteran, how do you respond to this?
The real help isn't being, I mean, you can, they have group talks and they have everything, you know what I mean? But like the real problem is one, the time you have to wait. The time you have to wait for appointments. The actual time paid and energy paid to I mean, they have to talk to people. They need to talk to psychologists, people that know what they're doing, counselors, somebody that is able to show them, and because that's the point, is being able to get them to recognize and cope with it, because those scars aren't going anywhere.
Right.
And liquor and opioids and antidepressants have only led to more problems.
Right.
It's only masking the issue. The real issue, and even like I said, it's not just our veterans, which it's the largest problem there because they've seen so much trauma, but everybody else in the nation. I mean, I remember I had anger issues. I was upset a lot as a kid. I was in a divorced family. You know, things upset me. And I didn't know how to deal with that. I got mad. I would, but when I thought about going to talk to somebody, I was like, I already knew at a young age that's. What are you, a crazy?
You don't do that.
You don't.
That's weird.
Yeah,
you're a weirdo. If
exactly,
you do that.
and it's actually the exact opposite for anybody, even in a strong mental position.
You have to do it.
It's about talking and letting those things out, letting those feelings out, just sorting through them. Because even when you just release that or you say what's going on, it already alleviates some of that pressure, some of that, and like. Especially with our...
Just knowing that somebody else knows, too, that it's not a secret you're keeping, that you're not like, why do I feel this way?
Right.
You know?
And you think that these kids that have the issues, whether it's problems at home, whether it's, no matter what it is, like I said, divorce, there's multiple things that could be, bothering this child. But especially in the Midwest states, I think it's an issue because we try and hold ourselves to this, like, we're tough and we don't need help for this. And, like, that's not the case. Like, that's idiotic to think that. Like, humans need interaction. We need that warm blanket sometimes. And, like, that's okay. That doesn't show weakness. That shows that we just need we need a source, or we need a sense of, like, you need to vent that. You need to logically think about them. You need somebody to show you that you're seeing this different than what it actually is.
Right.
And that's a lot of I mean, I think school shootings, I think multiple mass shootings, a lot of these things. I mean, if you look at the last few, I mean, I don't know the exact stats, but I'm pretty sure out of the last 15 to 20, they've all been prescribed opioids of some sort.
The last 10,
antidepressants.
The last 10 for sure. I've been researching this a ton because that's going to be the next.
I'm not
podcast.
sure. I'm pretty sure that those things were what those antidepressants were supposed to stop. All the evidence has been showing is that it leads to more violence,
right.
Violent acts. Okay, I don't like every single one of them. Now,
and just to kind of loop that back, so because I want to stay on point here, because I know we got to get going here shortly. But what I want to say, though is to get back to our veterans and the PTSD and there's alternative things that they could be doing, right? Mm-hmm. You know, you're from South Dakota. It isn't legal here to use medical marijuana. You flew down to Arizona. You have your medical card now. As a professional fighter and as a veteran, just talk a little bit about what it does for you and the benefits that it's had on you.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, like the benefits that I've seen, I mean, first of all, anybody looking into it, like to get your card, it's a simple process that allows you to legally get your marijuana card, to be able to use edibles, concentrates, flour, multiple ways. And it's not for everyone, but it can benefit. And you definitely should consult a marijuana doctor if just to see if your ailments line up, if it will happen or if it will help you. Some of the qualifying things: severe chronic pain, severe persistent muscle spasms, cancer, Crohn's disease, glaucoma, hepatitis C, HIV, AIDS, PTSD. A lot of things have been shown to be aided by this, but that's why it's important to see that doctor and to be able to see somebody that can narrow in on that. I mean, for me personally, like pain management, anti-inflammatory properties, anti-anxiety, mood stabilizer, like my appetite, all those things are controlled by this.
So instead of you taking that highly addictive painkiller, you've chosen this route and you're seeing a lot of benefits from it.
Right. And not just that, but also CBD. So in marijuana, there's multiple cannabinoids is what they're called. THC is one, which works for relaxing the mind, body, at a level that you can't normally do when you're experiencing that high level muscle pain or whatever else those ailments may be. CBD is also like the best natural anti-inflammatory. It's almost like a cure-all. Like the problem is that it's a cannabinoid that makes up both hemp and marijuana plants, which is why it can now legally be extracted from hemp. At the time, like the reason that these things were illegal at the time is because of its textile or hemp's textile properties.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's a lot of we got to wrap this up, but
Yep.
there's a lot of dirty politics at
Right.
play when you look into this. I encourage everybody to look into this.
No, I definitely encourage you. Don't just take somebody's word for this.
Right.
If you
Do your
think that this
research.
may help you, do your research. If you have an ailment that lines up with something like this, please do your research. But know that there is other options out there besides the opioids and the things that you're prescribed. And
Especially
it may be
for
a
our
better
vets and our
option.
athletes that are
100%.
popping these pills left
But
and right.
also vets need to do their homework as well, because some of the marijuana products are psychoactive, which may counteract to some of the PTSD problems or
Sure.
anxiety issues that you have. So it's important to go see first. CBD might be the route that you take, because that kind of resets that mood, resets all of those neuroreceptors. Like CBD might be the route for you, but it also, like I said, it may help as well. It just depends. That's why it's important to go do your homework, speak with a medical marijuana doctor, and see if it's for you.
All right, buddy. I appreciate it all the time, man. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks, everybody.